Welcome everyone to What's New in 2021. I'm Patricia Washington, President and CEO of Visit Alexandria. Our work would not be possible without the leadership and investment of our partners, the City of Alexandria and Virginia Tourism Corporation, along with the key support from our charter members, Alexandria Hotel Association, George Washington's Mount Vernon, and Burke and Herbert Bank. Thank you. The fact that we're here this morning with an eye toward the future is a testament to your resilience. For me, this turn of a new year with all of its changes, and especially the launch of the vaccine process, provide new reasons to be hopeful. They recharge our batteries for the important work ahead, and that's what today is all about. Over the next hour, you're going to hear about new research and trends, new openings and experiences, projects in development, and marketing tools to help you thrive. Visit Alexandria's role is to unite our independent business community, to market Alexandria nationally and regionally, to inform and welcome visitors, and to ensure that each of you have the tools you need to capture your share of the visitor economy. This year, because of the pandemic, we've all had to adapt quickly, and we've done it effectively. And communities around the country have been looking to us to understand how we managed to shift the visitor experience so quickly, attentively, and safely. You all have been nothing short of amazing, and the entire Visit Alexandria team and I could not be more honored to work on your behalf and tell your stories. And we know that those stories and that adaptability will be just as important in 2021 as they were in 2020. So this morning, we're going to spend about an hour sharing with you key trends, themes, and resources. And as always, the presentation you're about to see will be emailed to you afterwards, so you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. So when we wrap up today's presentation, members of my team will also be available to you in the 4 breakout rooms for Q&A and informal discussion. So feel free to go in and out of those breakout rooms as you wish. We provided the links to each of the 4 rooms in your confirmation, and near the end of the formal presentation, we'll also put them in the chat. And now, before we begin, I'd like to turn the floor over to Alexis Stanton from our partners at Burke and Herbert Bank to welcome you this morning. Alexis.
Thank you, Patricia, and welcome everyone. Good morning. I'm Alexis Stanton, and I'm honored to be here today representing Burke and Herbert Bank team and the official bank of Visit Alexandria. It's been almost 8 years since we formed this partnership, and we continue to be impressed with the creativity and camaraderie of the Alexandria businesses. As Patricia mentioned, this year the partnership feels especially vital. Visit Alexandria and Burke and Herbert Bank share 2 core values that unite our work: community and supporting small businesses. It's the reason that we're all here this morning. And given that all of our business community has been through together in 2021 and the important work that lies ahead of us in the coming year, what could be more valuable than to come together this morning to plan for what's new in 2021? So as a local bank, we know the importance of small business, and we're committed to working with you to maintain the vitality that is the lifeblood of Alexandria. I'm excited to be able to share a few advances of what's happening at the bank in my area. As you can imagine, we wouldn't be here for over 168 years if we didn't continue to update and modernize our products and services. So for the last several months, my team and I have been busy working on the enhancing and expanding of the bank's treasury management services. And as a bank, we've been focusing on our digital strategy and where we can continue to make improvements and advancements. So here are just a few of the cool new things that are what's new at Burke and Herbert Bank. First off, when you visit our website, you'll notice that we've recently completed a fresh and modern update. We're also continuing to add information around our products and services, educational tips, and many other coming enhancements. I hope you'll check it out. Also, in the next few months, we have some really exciting updates coming to our retail and our business online banking platforms. We'll be updating the look and feel to give you easier access to banking information and give you some really cool ways to connect with us. We'll also soon be announcing faster ways to make payments, more efficient ways to receive payments, and additional ways that we can help to minimize the potential for risk and fraud. So we believe that by providing the digital tools you need and expect from your bank, that we can continue to support local businesses and customers as all of you continue to grow and expand. I look forward to getting to know you all better in the year ahead. And now it gives me great pleasure to turn it over to our partners at Visit Alexandria to hear more about what's new in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. And now I'm pleased to introduce Vito Fiore to update us on research and trends. Vito.
Thanks, Patricia. Well, good morning, everybody. Before we get to the heart of today's presentation, and Claire, my colleague, will give you an update on new openings and experiences in 2021 coming in Alexandria, and there's a lot more than you might expect. I want to just set the table by talking about some of the research that we're looking at, some of it that we've conducted, and to better understand the status of the travel industry, where things are with the pandemic right now, and how consumer trends may be changing. Next slide, please. Let's start with a look at the status of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide. So generally, I like to look at the hospitalization stats because they're much more stable than looking at some of the other metrics you can look at, because it's not related to the number of amount of testing that's out there and such. And what we can see is that this wave that the nation has gone through over the last 2 months has been pretty devastating. But it does appear to have peaked about 2 weeks ago, and things are headed in the right direction now, although still at an extremely high level. And so I'll provide some other data here that looks at possibly where things are headed. Next slide. When we zoom in on the DMV region, things are a little bit cloudier, but similar. You can see, especially if you look at the blue charts on the right, that hospitalizations due to COVID in Virginia and Maryland are near record levels now. But if you squint hard enough, you can see a bit of a drop in it, but it's still a little too early to tell that that's what's happening. DC is not quite as high as it was in the spring. Next slide. And looking at Alexandria data, it's a similar story. Things have been sort of bouncing up and down in terms of the amount of cases. If you look at the yellow line on this slide here, over the last 2 months, although things seem to be getting better over the last 2 weeks. Next slide. This is a map that shows an estimate of the number of people right now that are infected with COVID-19 in different parts of the country. And you can see that in the DC region, it's sort of in the middle. It's at sort of a moderate level of people that are infected compared to the rest of the nation. Not as high as in the deep south and in the southwest, but much higher than in the Midwest, where things were pretty bad in the fall. Next slide. So here is a computer model from the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. And this is trying to estimate the number of people that are infected per day from COVID-19, even whether they're being tested for it or not. And what you can see here is a similar story, which is the idea is that things may have peaked about a week or two ago, and they are on their way down, but again, still an extremely high level. Even under this scenario, things are expected to not be back to where they were in the fall until mid-March. Now, that said, this is just one forecast, and it assumes that there's not going to be another spike. There's a lot of unknowns out there right now. One is the impact of new COVID-19 variants from Brazil, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. Some of these are being found to be more transmissible, and so they spread more easily. And so there's a risk of another spike, especially if vaccination has not taken hold by that point and those strains become dominant. So that's something we need to watch. What you see above on the chart is not for certain. There's definitely a potential for a more negative situation in the spring. The other question is transmissibility after vaccination. Once you get vaccinated, can you transmit the virus to others? That's unclear right now. And how quickly will Americans be vaccinated? Next slide. So this here is looking at exactly that. You can see that right now, on average, 1.25 million people in the United States are being vaccinated each day. That is way up from where it was a couple weeks ago, but still pretty far below where we should be in terms of vaccinating people in the next couple of months. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to talk about sort of the impact of the pandemic on the travel and hospitality industry. Next slide. So in the opening months of the pandemic, you can see that over a third of all jobs that were lost were in the leisure and hospitality sector. Next slide. And that trend is continuing, and if anything, being exacerbated more so. You can see that in December, the leisure and hospitality sector lost 500,000 jobs in the United States. And that actually exceeds the total number of jobs that were gained in all the other sectors you can see on this slide. Now, actually, 3/4 of the leisure hospitality jobs that were lost were in the restaurant sector, which is not a surprise given that 1 out of 6 restaurants have unfortunately been forced to close in the last year. Next slide. So here at Visit Alexandria, we do some of our own research, and I want to thank all of you that participate in the quick monthly survey to see where things are by sector. So you can see that in May, basically all of you were down in the sort of 60 to 80% range, but things have gotten better for other sectors other than hotels. So the hotel sector has sort of stubbornly remained down in the 60 to 70% range in terms of overall revenue. But restaurants improved into the late summer and into the fall, although they've come back a bit down more as the weather got colder, which is not a surprise with the emphasis of outdoor dining. And then the retail sector also improved in the summer and into the fall, and actually in December was only slightly down over previous year. Next slide. So zooming in on hotels, this here is the revenue per available room, which is kind of the gold standard metric for hotel performance. What's being seen across the country is that the inner core of metropolitan areas is suffering worse than the outer areas, and those are doing worse than the areas that are more remote. And the reason for that is that the inner areas are more dependent on business and group travel, which is almost non-existent right now, or it's quite small. And the areas that are more dependent on leisure and there's more open space, those places are doing better. So DC is down 82%, their revenue per available room versus previous year of the last 6 months. Arlington's down 78. Alexandria's doing a little better than both Arlington and DC, down 72, but still below the national average, which is down 50%. So again, the larger metropolitan areas are doing worse, but Alexandria is doing better than the inner areas of DC region. Next slide. Now let's talk about something more optimistic, the recovery going forward and how consumer behavior relating to travel may be changing. Next slide. So this here is a slide from the Federal Reserve that looks at the amount of savings that people are putting away. So this is the percentage of people's disposable income that is going towards savings. You can see it normally ranges in the sort of the 6 to 8% range. It shot up to almost 35% early in the pandemic and is still about double what it normally is. So what does that mean? That means that there's a lot of folks out there, especially sort of on the more upper and middle and upper income, that have a lot of money that they have not been spending on services because they're either not safe or they're not allowed. And that includes travel, that includes fine dining, that includes concerts, things like that. So there's definitely an opportunity for pent-up demand if people choose to use their money as the pandemic alleviates. Next slide. So this is the forecast from US travel as far as the upcoming years. If you look at the green line, you can see that represents the change in each year in total visitor spending across the country. And then the bars represent the absolute amount of spending. So 2020 was obviously extremely tough. 2021, 2022 are going to have huge amounts of growth. But if you look at the actual bars in terms of the overall amount of spending, we're still going to be behind where we were in 2019, even 3 years out. And the proportion of international travel, of course, is smaller than usual, as that has been quite minimal lately, and regulations will likely continue for the near future. Next slide. The first thing I want you to take away from this is a chart of overall hotel room demand in the United States. First thing to look at is that the gray line represents the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, which we know was the worst recession in like 50 years at that point. And the other thing, though, is to see the blue line, which represents the COVID-19 pandemic recession. So you can see that it's about 5 times steeper of a drop than what we saw in 2009, which was bad enough, right? And so there's quite a bit to climb out from, even if we see substantial growth. Right now, we're sort of partway back. And then the hopeful thing is, as we get into the later part of 2021, we're only going to be down 10 to 20% in terms of total room demand. Next slide. So when are people going to travel if we're going to start making that recovery? If you see right now in January, right now only about 5% of people have any plan to do any leisure travel. And that's actually even lower than normal for January. But things continue to get a little better into February, March, and April. This is, again, people's own volunteering in a survey of when they expect to travel across the country, not just to Alexandria. But as we get into May, June, July, things really start picking up. So there's a lot of people that are planning late spring into summer travel, and then things seem to stay pretty strong into the fall. So that May to October period is looking fairly promising, at least as of right now, and people's opinions and bookings could change if the health situation is worse than expected. Next slide. This is a comparison of business versus leisure travel and how they will recover at 2 different rates. So if you see here that in 2021, it's expected that leisure will be about 90% of the way back later in 2021, but business will not even be halfway back. And then you can see that by 2024, business travel would be all the way back. So this impacts you if you're at a hotel. If you're a restaurant and you normally count on business travelers at your restaurant during the week, that's going to come back much more slowly than your weekends business, which you may see later on in the year if the pandemic starts to alleviate, doing more similar to usual. Next slide. So speaking of the meeting side, this was a survey the MPI did for their meetings outlook on the left here, and asked planners when do they expect that things are going to be back to normal in terms of their meetings, the amount of meetings that they're booking. And in the number one response was 2022, and then 2023 was sort of the runner-up. So again, the meeting planners, the ones that are the closest to this, they are actually talking to their clients. They're saying, really, I'll be a year or two away before they're all the way back, although we certainly will see some meeting activity later on in the year if things continue to improve. And then on the right here, this is actually just surveying meeting planners. What is it they want to see? So they want to see that safety imagery. They want to see people socially distanced. They want to see people wearing masks. They want to know what's new. They want to see outdoor things. And we're trying to do that ourselves. And we know that our venue partners are doing the same. Next slide. So where do people want to go whenever they are dreaming about traveling this year? So if you look on the left, that's the list from 2019 in terms of the most desired cities. So DC was fairly near the top. In 2021, DC is still one of the top places that people are hoping to visit this year, although it's a bit lower than it was previously. And interestingly enough, Virginia is kind of right there with DC. So the balance between DC and Virginia travel is actually more on the Virginia side this year, even though there are quite a few people that are excited to visit DC. Next slide. And people are excited to travel in general. You can see here that 60% of people have a high degree of excitement about travel in 2021. And that's actually the highest it's been. Destination Analyst has done national surveys of the travel population. And this is the highest that they've seen. And they've been doing this survey every week since March. So it's a lot of optimism about travel later on in the year, even if people aren't doing it right now. Next slide. And how are people going to find out about where to go? This is the type of data that we look at a lot of times, and it may be useful to you in terms of what are people, resources are people using. It may not come to a surprise to you that it's search engines, it's social media like Facebook and Instagram, it's online content. Streaming video services are becoming even more important. We consumed about an hour more per day of digital video during the pandemic. And research shows that people are expecting to continue doing that. So things like YouTube, TikTok, Netflix, streaming services, those things are going to continue to be higher than they were before the pandemic. Next slide. What type of trip will people take whenever they take a trip? The first thing that people want to do, which they haven't been able to do, a lot of them, is they want to visit their family. They want to be able to have that connection in person and physically with folks. So you can see that the top two things that people, the top two types of trips that are going to happen over the next, in 2021, are traveling by car to seeing friends and relatives. And then following that, leisure vacation type trips by car. We know that road trips have been on the rise over the last 5 years, and they've gone up even more so as a proportion of overall travel since the pandemic started. And it looks like that's going to continue. Next slide. Different travelers have different risk perceptions and the way they may manage their own risk. You can see that right now about 15% of people say, I'm already traveling. Another 15% say, I'm ready to travel. I'm just not traveling right now. But the biggest chunk are those folks that are kind of in the middle. They're cautious. They're ready to travel, but they have some hesitation. There may be some types of things that they're willing to do, some things they're not willing to do, or they want to hear more about how safe a destination is or the activity they want to do, or they just need a little more time, but once they do, they're ready to go. So the thing I want you to take away from this is that it's not necessarily the extremes of people that are like, no way am I traveling, even thinking about traveling, versus people that are like, this is bunk, I'm ready to travel. It's most people are actually in the middle. So that represents the most amount of travelers, are these people that are like, I want to travel, but under these circumstances, or I want to travel, I'm just waiting for a signal about X, Y, and Z. Next slide. And people are booking at different times. So you can see here, this is the average booking window. This is the amount of days before someone comes and visits a place that they book their hotels. And you can see that it usually ranges between 2 to 3.5 weeks. But since the pandemic began, that's been more like a week. So people are planning more spontaneously, they're traveling spontaneously, and that's something we're gonna wanna look out for in the coming months. Next slide. In terms of consumer behaviors, you can see here that there's a lot of safety behaviors that people, of course, took up once the pandemic started. But there's also other types of behaviors. If you see here, purchasing things online, supporting local businesses, using food delivery services, etc. And the pink bar actually shows the percentage of those people that made that change, how much of them say they're going to keep doing it. So you can see that a lot of the things that we're doing now, it's been so long that we're going to continue to have those habits. Next slide. And then this here is showing the percentage of all retail spending that's being done online. So you can see that in 2019, the light blue line, you could see that it was about 25% just about a year and a half ago. But after the pandemic, that shot up as people wanted to find a safer way to conduct business. It's actually only increased. I mean, as we got close to the holidays last year, it was up over 40% of all retail spending was online. And the expectation from survey data, as I just said, is that even if it comes down a bit, it's going to still be much higher. That disruption has been accelerated. Next slide. And before I close, just wanted to say that on the retail and restaurant side, here's sort of what the experts are expecting. So Deloitte Industry Outlook said that 6 in 10 retail executives expect recovery in the next 1 to 2 years, but a quarter see a longer timeline of 2 to 5 years. And on the restaurant side, we're expecting to see growth in 2021, 11% increase in restaurant revenue, which normally would be a fantastic year, but that would still be 15% below 2019 levels. And that concludes my presentation. So I'm happy, next slide. Happy to turn it over to Claire to talk about all the cool things that are happening in Alexandria in 2021. Take it away.
Thank you, Vito. We all know it's been an incredibly challenging time, and we've seen how our local businesses and organizations have had to adapt to excruciating circumstances to be able to keep going. And that's why you might be surprised by the amount of new openings that have happened so far during the pandemic and that are coming up this year. We're going to take a look at recent openings that you may have missed and look ahead at 2021 with trends around the waterfront, Black history, sustainability, the arts, and more. First up, what's new at the waterfront? Alexandria will gain hundreds of new outdoor dining seats with 2 waterfront concepts from Alexandria restaurant partners, Ada's on the River and Barca Pier and Wine Bar. Ada's on the River just opened this month. The restaurant design draws inspiration from Ada Lovelace, a 19th century female mathematics pioneer, and is helmed by executive chef Randall J. Matthews. Matthews is a Maryland native who's worked with some of DC's most celebrated kitchens under Michelin-starred chefs, including Chef Adam Sobel at Bourbon Steak at the Four Seasons in DC, which is a Nina Group restaurant. He was then promoted to open 20 restaurants globally and later worked with Chef Nina himself at the Four Seasons in Baltimore. He's also worked with James Beard award-winning restaurateur Sam Fox and opened the highly acclaimed True Food Kitchen. Ada's menu is inspired by the familiar influences of Chef Matthews' mother and grandmother, and it's centered around meat, seafood, and vegetarian dishes cooked to perfection in the wood-burning oven. The second waterfront concept from Alexandria Restaurant Partners will open in the spring. Barca Pier will be a seasonal outdoor eatery inspired by Barcelona's beach bars, featuring carved-out shipping containers and a menu of Mediterranean small plates. Barca's indoor component, Barca Wine Bar, will be open throughout the year. Nearby at Waterfront Park at the foot of King Street, the third temporary public art installation in the city's Site C series will be unveiled in March by the Office of the Arts. Groundswell by Brooklyn-based artist Mark Riegelman, and it will be on display until November. Riegelman was inspired by Alexandria's history as a bustling port city in the 18th and 19th centuries, when drastic measures were taken to extend the city's shoreline. New land was built upon intentionally sunk wooden ships and thousands of timber pilings that crept further into the river, creating a fluctuating new boundary. Drawing upon this, Groundswell introduces an element of play to Alexandria's changing shoreline with an immersive ecosystem of 102 raw wood pilings, topped with etched blue mirrors that shimmer like water. The grayscale ground mural reflects the underwater topography of the river near this site. Alexandria's newest maritime attraction, Tall Ship Providence, arrived at our waterfront in 2019 and opened in 2020. This year, the Tall Ship Providence Foundation plans to build a brand new pier and visitor center at Waterfront Park, bringing Providence closer to the action at the marina and King Street when it opens this summer. In the meantime, Providence will expand virtual classes on topics including maritime, nautical, and colonial history. The 2021 cruise season kicks off in April with specialty cruises featuring themed tastings with craft beer, wine, rum, and more. And now for you TV and film buffs. Alexandria kicked off 2021 with a celebration of its blockbuster connections following the Christmas premiere of Wonder Woman 1984, which filmed in Alexandria's Landmark Mall in 2018. Through February, fans can view a window display of the 7-foot-tall drum prop from the Wonder Woman shopping mall scene, emblazoned with the iconic Virginia is for Lovers logo. You can explore from home on Visit Alexandria's web hub with a featurette video and behind-the-scenes photos. You can also learn how to support local businesses with Wonder Woman-themed offerings like cocktails, donuts, and tattoos. And you can go beyond Wonder Woman. Check out our new Ultimate Guide to Alexandria's Celebrity Connections, a newly launched self-guided stroll of TV and film-related sites in Alexandria with connections to the West Wing, J. Edgar, Mercy Street, and more. Alexandria continues to be a filming site for national shows, movies, and commercials, and was recently featured on HGTV's House in a Hurry and hosted filming for a full episode of the TLC reality show, Darcy and Stacey. Now, new Black history and culture experiences. Predating the surge in the Black Lives Matter movement resulting from the murder of George Floyd, the City of Alexandria, the Office of Historic Alexandria, and Visit Alexandria had a renewed commitment to racial equity with major projects and programs underway, including the city's hiring of their first race and social equity officer, Jacqueline N. Turner, in 2019. In 2020, we highlighted Black history experiences like the Duke Street Black History Trail, temporary public art inspired by the city's Black history, and Black-owned businesses to support right now. And in late 2020, we featured many newly launched tours and experiences, including a new Courageous Journey driving tour, a new waterfront African American Heritage Trail, and a new Underground Railroad themed tour for Manumission Tour Company. Looking ahead in 2021, first up, we have a new online video series from the Office of Historic Alexandria called Agents of Change, which is launching around now at the end of January. Each video in this growing collection will feature a different African American and how he or she helped the community, featuring groundbreaking individuals like Samuel Tucker, the lawyer who organized the sit-in at the Alexandria Library in 1939. This spring, the Office of Historic Alexandria will release a new publication edited by Alexandria Black History Museum Director Audrey Davis. This new anthology, entitled Alexandria at War, 1861 to 1865, African American Emancipation in an Occupied City, examines the African American experience in Civil War Alexandria. Topics include the contraband in Alexandria, the United States colored troops in the city, African American aid workers, and more. Then in the summer, the new southern route of the waterfront African American Heritage Trail will launch in the form of an online story map that you can view from home or on a mobile phone as you walk the trail. You can learn powerful stories beginning at Waterfront Park and ending at Jones Point, where the historic southern boundary stone of DC is located. In 1791, Benjamin Banneker, a free African American who was a self-educated mathematician and astronomer, worked on the survey team to place this DC boundary stone. Following the City of Alexandria's purchase of Freedom House in 2020 and a series of renovations and COVID closures, the museum plans to reopen in the summer of 2021, pending public safety considerations, to tell the story of thousands of men, women, and children who passed through the slave trading firm. Upon reopening and through the end of the year, the museum will feature a major traveling exhibition from the Virginia Museum of History and Culture entitled Determined: The 400-Year Struggle for Black Equality, which features profiles of 30 individuals, more than 100 evocative objects, and multimedia interpretive content. Lastly, in spring and summer of 2021, permanent markers for the city's lynching victims, teenagers Joseph McCoy and Benjamin Thomas, are in the works to be installed near Market Square through the Alexandria Community Remembrance Project. The installation of these markers is part of the extensive Equal Justice Initiative program through the National Memorial of Peace and Justice, in which the Office of Historic Alexandria is taking steps to claim our community's pillar commemorating Benjamin Thomas and Joseph McCoy. Next, I'll talk about the Intertribal Creatives Collective, which celebrates the art and voices of Indigenous people. Intertribal Creatives is a collective launched in December 2020 by Running Strong for American Indian Youth, a nonprofit that supports Native American communities. In December, Intertribal Creatives made a splash with their pop-up gallery and market at Founders Hall in Old Town, featuring visual art, handmade jewelry, and other forms of self-expression from Native artisans, entrepreneurs, and creatives from around the country. As the gallery space is undergoing a renovation for a spring reopening, Intertribal Creatives launched a fair trade online gallery and store in January this month. Now, a trend in sustainability. With growing climate and environmental crises, the responsibility for businesses and consumers to make sustainable and environmentally conscious choices is bigger than ever. This was the driving force for Anna and Justin Marino as they opened Mason and Greens, the DC area's first zero-waste grocery and sustainable dry goods store. Mason and Greens opened on King Street in March at the beginning of the pandemic and quickly adopted a strong virtual presence. New this year, they are adding more to their kitchen and home products and will soon carry different types of seeds and plantable greeting cards that grow into wildflowers. Just 2 blocks away, Nicole McGrew, owner of eco-friendly women's fashion boutique Threadleaf, is expanding her commitment to sustainability. She is launching a larger gardening section and adding vintage housewares and garden objects to her lineup of responsibly made fashion. Nicole will also host a series of virtual workshops on topics ranging from plant-based dyeing to farming to discussions with designers on their sustainability practices, launching on February 25th. These locally owned stores are complemented by popular outdoor clothing retailer Patagonia. Patagonia is an environmentally conscious national brand and certified B Corporation, which opened in the remodeled Old Town Theater in the fall of 2020. After COVID has subsided and it is safe to have indoor events, Patagonia will begin presenting community events that are in line with the company's environmental values. In addition to shopping, we have new sustainable food and beverage options, including Via Volcan Coffee, which opened in Old Town in the fall. Founded by Chris and Janina McCausland, Via Volcan is a micro roastery and cafe utilizing single origin coffee grown on the family's farm located in Panama on the slopes of the Baru volcano. The farm is run with an eye toward the environment. It contains virgin rainforest, which has remained untouched, filled with tropical birds and even the occasional mountain lion. Meanwhile, people considering the environmental benefits of foregoing meat will savor the 100% plant-based menu at Plant Burger. Plant Burger opened in the Carlisle Whole Foods in October as part of a regional chain co-founded by Top Chef alum Spike Mendelson. And now more outdoor art. Outdoor experiences continue to be an important promotional theme for Visit Alexandria, and we are pleased to promote several new and upcoming outdoor art installations and murals. I spoke earlier about the upcoming 2021 temporary installation at Waterfront Park, Groundswell. Well, last year's waterfront installation has a temporary new home in Parker Gray. The 4 sculptural figures of Wrought Knit Labor's Legacies by Ola Lake and Jayafis has been relocated to Cameron Street near the Durant Art Center and King Street Metro. The installation, which is on temporary loan from the artist, links the city's mercantile and industrial history with the labor of free and enslaved African Americans. Coming up this year, 2 other neighborhoods will gain permanent art installations. In Alexandria's West End, the City of Alexandria's Office of the Arts is managing a public art project at Burke Branch Library, which will feature a large-scale commissioned work by artist team Project One Studio planned for the spring. Meanwhile, at Del Rey's Pat Miller Neighborhood Square, look for the spring installation of a piece by artist Kirk Cease through a partnership of several Del Rey organizations. New murals throughout Alexandria provided bright spots in 2020, including Old Town's Come Together mural on the side of Rabini Jewelers on North Washington Street. Painted by Alexandria High School students Shelby Bavin and Caroline Mitchell in the context of the Black Lives Matter movement, the painting offers a twist on Michelangelo's creation of Adam as the black and white hands meet as a symbol of solidarity. New and expanded murals also appear on Imagine Artware and Fiberspace. In Del Rey, Kaizen Tavern features Reeve Wiley's stunning sunset-inspired mural, and artist Corey Burnett continues to add to a boat-themed mural near CVS. In case you missed it, the Tenants and Workers United building on Mount Vernon Avenue in Arlandria rolled out a new mural across the front of the building in August 2019, created by celebrated muralist Maz Paz and a youth team. Now let's look at one of Alexandria's most rapidly evolving neighborhoods, Old Town North. Long home to favorite local restaurants and the Art League School, this flourishing neighborhood is gaining attention as an up-and-coming dining and arts district with many new restaurants and the highly anticipated return of Metro Stage at a brand new venue in 2022. In 2019, Old Town North welcomed a major new development at 530 First Street from Eden's, which is a developer known for creating bleeding-edge dining and entertainment districts like the Mosaic District in Fairfax and Union Market in DC. Anchored by West Elm and welcoming Oak Steakhouse and Hinata Sushi Bar and Grill in the development's first year, new openings are making Eden's really come to life. You can crank up the heat at Woo Boy Hot Chicken or relish the bohemian digs of popular duo Sisters Thai and the Magnolia Dessert Bar. A Del Rey staple for decades, St. Elmo's Coffee Pub graces Old Town North with a similar living room vibe and expanded breakfast offerings at its just opened sister shop. recently opened Cut and Shave Barbershop, and coming soon, East Coast-based pet store chain Loyal Companion enhance Eden's expanding retail scene. Near Eden's, you can get a taste from chefs who were recently featured on Food Network's Chopped. At episode winner Chris Edwards' newly opened Hank and Mitzi's Italian Kitchen, and at Chef Mimi Wynn's Sunday in Saigon and Yagut Street. Meanwhile, Sheridan Suites in Old Town North completed a multi-million-dollar renovation in July of 2020. This comprehensive transformation includes upgrades to the exterior, a refreshed lobby, and an elevated coffee and bar experience. The all-suite hotel features completely new guest rooms and a fitness center expanded to 3,000 square feet to accommodate physically distant workouts. Meeting rooms and breakout studios have been completely reimagined with the latest meeting technology and a fresh look and feel. We have 30 new and coming soon restaurants. Let's take a look at some trends, and please note, you're going to see some restaurants repeated because they fit in multiple trends. Pan-Asian flavors, which was a big trend we highlighted last year, continues to grow with new concepts like Sushi Jin Next Door, which just opened in the West End, and newcomers Pho Nam and Thai Signature in Old Town. Cafes are also having a heyday, with Jewish Deli adding a brick and mortar operation to their bustling food truck business, and Mount Pernin opening its doors to cat and coffee lovers. Coming soon in February, May's Market and Cafe will open in the former Society Fair location in Old Town from Stomping Ground owner Nicole Jones. Trendy fast casual spots that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, Woo Boy and Plant Burger, were joined by West End eatery Crunch and Noodles, all of which opened in October. And new Italian-inspired eateries include pizza spot Peace Out Del Rey, whose Detroit-style pie will gain a competitor from Emmy Squared, a small but growing national Detroit-style pizza chain. And that will go into the former Pizzeria Paradiso on King Street. Drinks destinations include newcomers King and Rye at the Alexandrian Hotel and Barkhouse Dog Bar in the Potomac Yard Del Rey area. Coming soon, Old Town will welcome cocktail spot Old Hat from celebrated DC area bartender Jack Caminos, who's known for his work at Compass Rose and other hotspots, and with partner Tim Prosser. Those who love classic American fare have been treated to West End newcomer Silver Diner and the pop-up version of Goody's Frozen Custard and Treats, with owner Brandon Bird planning to officially open the brick and mortar operation at the former Ice House in the spring. Joe's Kitchen is slated for Del Rey in 2021, and Virginia's Darling, adjacent to May's Market and Cafe, will come to Old Town late in the year. And now a retail update. With hundreds of independent boutiques, Alexandria's retail scene continues to adjust to the times with expanded online shops during COVID-19 and innovative ways to shop small, while also welcoming new national and international retailers to join recent newcomers Sephora, Warby Parker, and West Elm. In addition to Patagonia, King Street welcomed British lifestyle clothing and accessories retailer Fatface in 2020. Rocket Fizz opened in Alexandria's West End just in time for the holiday season, boasting 2,000 different kinds of retro candy and 300 types of soda. On the independent side, we look forward to the expansion and new home of Old Town Books, owner Allie Kirkpatrick's local bookstore that started as a pop-up at the waterfront and will relocate this spring to 130 South Royal Street. In November, Made in ALX, an Alexandria-based makers market, opened its virtual doors to support local artisans, creators, and makers during the tough holiday season. Cocktail Queen and owner of the Hour, Victoria Ferguson, expanded her online store while revamping her King Street boutique from an antique shop to a modern showroom, which reopened in mid-October 2020. And in August 2020, the sisters-in-law duo behind Mint Condition unveiled their latest concept, Mint Collective, offering everything from beauty products and dog accessories to affordable clothing pieces. And here's more retail that you may have missed, including experiential retailers Kid Create Studio and Ink Tattoos, consumables retailers Old Virginia Tobacco Company, which just opened this month, just opened last month, and your CBD store, appropriately opening just before the pandemic. Plus gift spots, Old Town Sock Company, and King Street Souvenirs. And now the micro weddings trend. While some couples have decided to postpone their wedding, others are embracing the opportunity to have an intimate, ultra romantic day. And Alexandria is full of fantastic spots, which we are promoting in themes like secret gardens, like the ones you see here at Carlisle House and the Rectory on Princess Street, and scenic waterfront settings like Hummingbird's Patio, and memorable rooftops like Cafe 44's rooftop terrace with panoramic waterfront views. Plus intimate spaces in spacious venues, such as under the historic tree at Mount Vernon or on the steps of the George Washington Masonic National Memorial. The meetings market is another sector with new offerings as a result of COVID-19. In addition to highlighting COVID resources and hybrid meeting resources, Visit Alexandria's meetings team has launched new 360-degree virtual tours to showcase Alexandria inside and out so that meeting planners can tour through Old Town and view properties instantly from their desktops. At the same time, our local businesses are working with Visit Alexandria to roll out innovative virtual experiences to give remote delegates a virtual taste of Alexandria from the comfort of their own home. Meeting planners can book anything from Zoom yoga sessions with Paya Fitness, customized boxes from Jay Shea for at-home coffee breaks, cocktail tastings, and more, and virtual classes with Alexandria restaurant partners. Meanwhile, our meetings team is marketing crisis recovery programs, team building, and more through the Leadership Collection at Alexandria. The Leadership Collection was launched by Visit Alexandria in January 2020 to showcase the offerings of an exclusive collection of 3 nationally recognized executive leadership and team building opportunities through the George Washington Leadership Institute at Mount Vernon, the Crystal Group, and Building Momentum. This concludes my part of the presentation. I'd like to introduce Christina Mendrip, Vice President of Real Estate for the Alexandria Economic Development Partnership.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm Christina Mendrip with Economic Development Partnership of the City of Alexandria. Our first slide, do you guys have the slide? There you go. First slide is an overview map of our city that we typically use to orient people to our commercial market areas. The highlighted yellow stars are a couple targeted development areas our team has been focused on in recent years. While there's been a lot of development planning this past year, I will walk through some major announcements of some of our more notable projects that will have an economic impact on our community in the coming years. Working clockwise, we will first start in Alexandria's West End. Next. Landmark Mall was mentioned earlier. For all of those years, the mall has not lived up to its once lively self, and too many of those who have grown up here going to the Landmark Mall Mall will always be fondly remembered in the latest Wonder Woman movie. We are honored that Howard Hughes Corporation, the owner of the mall, allowed this movie to capture the best of what the 80s could offer. Moving on, though. In December, Inova Health Systems announced its future $1 billion investment in the 50-acre Landmark Mall site for the new Hospital Medical Center. Our Alexandria Hospital will eventually relocate to Landmark by the year 2028. It is expected over 2,000 healthcare providers will operate out of this location. In addition to the hospital and the future Shar Cancer Research Center, the site will also see additional development to include mixed-use residential, medical office buildings, and 230,000 square feet of retail and entertainment. Development partners include Fulcher Pratt, Howard Hughes, and Cerritos Grove Properties. This announcement follows a previous announcement by Inova to build a much smaller 100,000 square foot healthplex just west of Potomac Yard and the Oakville project, which is expected to deliver roughly around the late 2023-2024 timeframe. And speaking of movies and theaters, we are sad to say goodbye to the Regal Theater in Potomac Yard, being demolished as we speak to make way for the new Virginia Innovation Campus. Seen here, Virginia Tech will soon develop its first phase of the school, roughly 300,000 square feet. Virginia Tech will begin hosting classes in its new home by the fall of 2024. Over the past 12 months, city staff and the developer JBG Smith and Virginia Tech took on the seemingly insurmountable task of planning the development of not just the first school site, but an additional 1.2 million square feet of mixed-use development in what we're calling Phase 1 of Virginia Tech Innovation District. Seen here is a rendering of what is to become of the former theater and parking lots over the next 10 years. Anchored with the new Potomac Yard BT Metro site located in the upper right corner of your screen, the first Virginia Tech school building and one other office building will be called the Partnership Building, will emerge out of the ground over the next 18 to 24 months. We could also see at least one residential building develop closest to the Virginia Tech campus. It is anticipated we will eventually have over 100,000 square feet of retail, lining that future walk between Metro and school, but fear not, the target, which I've identified in the lower right corner of the existing Potomac Yard Retail Center, is expected to remain over the near to long term. Next slide. Lastly, in the area known as Old Town North neighborhood, our 70-plus-year-old coal plant, which has been decommissioned and shuttered since early 2012, now has a new owner. The Potomac River Generating Station, also known in the past as Myron and Genon, recently traded hands to a Chicago-based developer called Hilco, whose expertise is in remediation and repurposing obsolete structures like we see here into environmentally sustainable, economically vibrant, mixed-use communities. This development is expected to anchor a newly forming arts district in Old Town North. Currently, the plan calls for the greater of 2 million square feet to be developed in a mixed-use community over approximately 15 to 18 acres, which borders our waterfront. Next slide. Based upon initial discussions with the developer, you can see a recent example of their efforts, most similar to our own, located in Boston, whereby the developer is repurposing a 15-acre site containing the former Edison Power Station plant into a mixed-use cultural center. Next slide. Which will include creative office, hotel, residential, and public space for events and activities. It is anticipated that future development over this large swath of Alexandria's waterfront will emerge over the next 5 to 10 years. And lastly, and in closing, I've spoken to you all about developments in the past few years, but I feel compelled, again, to close with my comments with an update on a development that might be near and dear to my heart and perhaps yours. Our Wegmans is still on track to open in the spring of 2022. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I feel it's a tough challenge to follow Christina and Wegmans, but we're going to wrap up this morning by reviewing some marketing tools that are available to you through Visit Alexandria. Next. Some of you may remember this slide, which we've used before in earlier What's New presentations, but just a reminder that the bulk of what Visit Alexandria does is marketing the entire Alexandria region. So that sort of pink red area that you see there represents the marketing that we do, the advertising, the public relations, that outreach. So the next tier is after someone has decided to come to Alexandria, there's sort of your marketing and all of the things that you do to market your own business to capture your share of the visitor economy. And finally, we never want to forget the experience itself, which is what happens actually when someone is in your business. The pricing, the quality of the experience itself, all of those things impact their likelihood to come back, the length of stay, and the likelihood that they're going to tell their friends about the experience, and you'll benefit from that word of mouth. Today, we're mostly going to focus on this sort of orange bucket, the your marketing, and what tools Visit Alexandria has for you to take full advantage and capture your share of the visitor economy. Next. So we begin with the official visitor guide. And we're excited this year to be working with a new publisher, Madden Media. We're going to go to breakout rooms soon. And when we do, we'll actually have a couple of representatives from Madden in the membership breakout room. So if you want to talk to them more about what's going on with the visitor guide, I'd encourage you to make use of that. The 2021 issue will actually be released this year in mid-March, a couple months later than normal. We'll have about 250,000 copies distributed in 95 locations, not just here in Alexandria at individual businesses and in the boxes you see out on the street, but also in Arlington, National Harbor, DC, and even farther afield, up and down the I-95 corridor, and Virginia rest areas, which relating back to Vito's research earlier in terms of the importance of the drive market, are really sort of critical distribution points for us to add to the overall mix. We're going to talk in a second about paid advertising, but want you to be aware that, that this is sort of one of the most highly qualified prospects that you can pursue. And advertising is available from as little as $170 a month, or about $2,000 a year. We also took some time to compare our advertising rates to some comparable publications, both the Destination DC Guide and the Virginia Tourism Guide. Both print about 250,000 copies, but their advertising rates are about twice, or in some cases more than that, what you would pay to be in the Alexandria Guide. So really, we feel that the pricing on this is quite competitive to the other alternatives that are out there. Finally, just to remind you of timing, your listings will be due in September, and those of you that are advertising, those ads will be due in November. Next. The next opportunity we want to remind you of is visit alexandriava.com, our website. Even during the pandemic, still averaged over 2 million visits a year. And you can see here our homepage, some recent content that encompasses ALX at Home and Wonder Woman, our ongoing commitment to health and safety, and of course, right now, what's happening, Restaurant Week. Next. In addition to your free listing, you can also enhance your visibility through paid advertising, and those things are available to you, and you can learn more about them through Tricia Meisner, who will also be in the membership room. Paid web advertising on our website starts at about $100 a month. Next. We also want to remind you to take advantage of our visitor center. We have about 75,000 people in an average year. Obviously, the past year has not been average, but about 75,000 folks that we typically serve through walk-in, phone, email, and mail. And you are all entitled to a free brochure slot, so please take advantage of it. Not only is it helpful to visitors who come in, but it's also helpful to our staff to become better educated about your business, and enables them to provide more information to guests who walk in. And those who walk in are extremely qualified, because they are, by virtue of literally walking in and seeking information, they've told you that they really want to get the most out of their Alexandria visit. So encourage you to be present there. Visitor Center is also a central site for various tours in the city. We also sell tickets to events and attractions there, as well as promotional merchandise featuring Alexandria. So all those things draw people in. Next. There are a host of other member marketing tools, and we know that you may take advantage of learning more about these things in the breakout rooms to follow shortly. But just remember, our sales and meetings team is working on meetings and groups, weddings, as well as the leadership collection, the new leadership program that Claire mentioned earlier, that really seeks to position Alexandria as the hub of executive learning and meeting nationally and regionally. Key promotions that we've been providing winter and summer restaurant weeks, like Winter Restaurant Week to Go that's happening now, our Flex Getaway Hotel Package, Sidewalk Sale and Shop Small Week to support the retail community, and our Key to the City Attractions Pass to support our various attractions. The communications team, not just on press relations, but also social media and our Visit ALX blog, which continues to attract more and more readers. And finally, our membership team, every single month on the first business day of the month, we provide you with the News You Can Use newsletter. Really encourage you to take 5 minutes and skim it at the start of each month, because it is a preview of what's upcoming and what you can take advantage of. Also, research briefings like the one that you saw from Vito earlier occur throughout the year and are also emailed to you. We gather hopefully soon in person, but for right now online at our annual meeting, the What's New event, Summer Social. And also once a month, Patricia hosts individual sector meetings that are smaller, less formal gatherings of folks within your business sector, and a chance for you to get to know some of your peers and talk about specific challenges to your individual sector and things that you're looking for. Next. So a couple tools we're going to email you at the end of today. The first is our annual planner. So this is sort of a central one-page document that you can use to just identify what's going to be happening over the course of the year, whether there's a cost associated, whether it's free, and when to participate. So as you think about your annual marketing plan, this is a handy tool to think about how you can integrate Visit Alexandria marketing programs into it. Next. And a program summary. So really just a document to provide short descriptions of each of the programs that are on that, that planner that we talked about a second ago. But always beyond that, if you're looking for more detailed information, it's available personally through our membership team. So next. Again, I mentioned earlier, as did I think Patricia at the outset, that we're going to have 4 breakout rooms. Typically, when we hold this meeting each year, we have tables around the perimeter of the room for you to visit to learn more about anything that happened. So obviously, in the absence of being all together in the same room and having those tables, we're going to go into breakout rooms. So I believe in the chat, Alyssa has just put up links for each of these 4 breakout rooms. So communications, research, sales, and membership. So we encourage you to visit those and to hop in and out of those rooms freely. Stop in, ask a question, feel free to jump out and jump into another one. But the next half hour is sort of really your time in each of these rooms to learn more about the specific programs that you're interested in. And I would just say, finally, after that half hour, for the next 364 days, we're also available to you individually. So in particular, our membership team, Melanie and Tricia, with their email addresses here on the screen, are available, or any of us on the Visit Alexandria team. All of us are listed on the website, and you can feel free to contact any of us directly. So with that, I want to thank you for participating in today's What's New event, and encourage you now to shift to the breakout rooms. Thank you.